In 1976, a Montreal gang boss put a $50,000 bounty on a police detective's head. The detective lived under armed protection for months. Nobody ever touched him. A Sicilian crime boss ran this city for 20 years, dined with politicians, then flew to New York, shot 3 men dead, and flew home. Police called him the Teflon Don because nothing ever stuck. And the people who finally brought it all down, they hid a camera inside a coffee shop and recorded 2 million conversations over 4 years. They were trying to catch the mob. They caught 2 Montreal mayors instead. 3 stories, 1 city. This is Montreal, Canada's crime capital. In the 1950s, a group of Irish Canadian kids out of Point St. Charles, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Montreal, started knocking off banks for a living. They got so good at it for 2 decades. Montreal was actually known as the bank robbery capital of North America. More robberies than any other city. The reason was almost funny. The Quebec courts handed out 5-year sentences for armed robbery. The same crime you got 20 years across the border. So the best thieves in the country just kept working. A Montreal police commander put it bluntly years later. They had the best safecrackers and the best hijackers. Some of those guys were 16 years old, and today they're still at it. They'd already tunneled into bank vaults and hijacked trucks for 20 years by the time they tried their first armored car job in 1973. That one went badly. A guard named Claude Viennoux was shot and bled to death on the street while the gang got away with about $278,000. 3 years later, they came back for a bigger target. On March 30th, 1979, the West End gang pulled off their biggest score yet. They hit a Brinks armored car and walked away with over $2 million in cash, plus a stash of gold Olympic coins. It was the largest cashed heist in Canadian history at the time. Then it got messy. Montreal police put together a dedicated unit just to chase them down, nicknamed the Rubber Duck Squad. In May, the lead detective, Andre Savard, caught up to one of the robbers, John Slavy, in a shootout. Slavy didn't survive. That same night, Savard got a phone call from the gang's own lawyer. The lawyer told him, almost gently, that people weren't happy and that he should consider it a warning. Word got back to Savard that the gang boss, Frank Dunny Ryan, $50,000 price on his head. He lived under armed guard for months. Nobody ever touched him. The Brinks money did something bigger than just pay off a robbery, though. It bankrolled the gang's jump into heroin and cocaine, and gave them cash to take over the Port of Montreal completely, controlling everything that came in and out of that city for years. As for Frank Ryan, the man who built that empire, his own world eventually turned on him too. He was shot dead in 1984. The Irish ran the docks, but by the 1980s, there was only one man running the whole city, and everyone, even the cops, called him untouchable. Vito Rizio came to Montreal from Sicily in 1954 when he was 8 years old. His father built a crime family that eventually took over the entire city's underworld. On May 5th, 1981, Vito flew down to New York on a job. 3 rival mob captains in the Bonanno crime family were suspected of planning a takeover, so Vito and 3 other men ambushed them inside a Brooklyn social club and shot all 3 dead. That hit became famous. It's the exact same triple murder depicted in the movies Donnie Brasco, because an undercover FBI agent was embedded in that same crime family at the time. The FBI only ever considered Vito a soldier in somebody else's organization. Canadian authorities knew better. To them, he wasn't a soldier at all. He was the most powerful mob boss in the entire country. Here's where it gets interesting. That single afternoon earned Vito full membership in the Bonanno family. From that point on, organized crime experts started calling the Rizios the 6th family, powerful enough to be ranked right up there with New York's actual 5 families. For the next 2 decades, Vito Rizio ran Montreal almost completely untouched. He brokered peace between bikers, street gangs, and the Mafia. He dined with politicians. Police called him the Teflon Don because absolutely nothing ever stuck to him. Then, in January 2004, American authorities finally indicted him for the 1981 murders. He fought extradition for over 2 years, all the way to Canada's Supreme Court. He lost. In 2007, Rizzio pleaded guilty, but even then, he tried to talk his way down. He told the court he'd only shouted, "It's a holdup," while the other men did the actual shooting. A mob informant later testified that wasn't true, that Rizzio was one of the first ones out of hiding and the first one to fire. It barely mattered. He got 10 years and was out in 5. But while he sat in a maximum security prison in the US, his entire family back home was being wiped out. His son was shot dead. His brother-in-law was kidnapped and never seen again. His own father was killed by a sniper through his kitchen window. At his peak, Rizzio controlled territory covering more than 1 million square miles of Quebec and Ontario, including major U.S. border crossings. In 1996, he convinced the local biker gang, the Haitian mob, and the Irish mob to all work under him at once, turning rival gangs into one organized network instead of constant warfare. Vito Rizzio walked free in October 2012, came home to a city that had completely turned on his family, and died of pneumonia just a year later. He was 67. While Vito was running an empire, the people who would eventually bring it all down were already sitting in a parked car outside a tiny cafe on Jerry Street, just watching. From the outside, the Consensa Social Club looked like nothing. A storefront on a quiet street in North Montreal, old men playing cards, drinking espresso. It was actually the headquarters of the entire Rizzio crime family. Starting in 2002, the RCMP planted hidden cameras and microphones inside that cafe and just let them run for 4 straight years. By the time they were done, they recorded almost 2 million conversations and tens of thousands of hours of video. Here's what they actually caught on tape. Millionaires dividing up criminal proceeds like a corner store splitting tips. One recording shows the family literally separating stacks of cash into 5 piles, one for each of the top bosses, while sitting around styrofoam cups and a couple of pizza boxes. When they do something, they bring us something. One of them is heard explaining on the tape, and we always divide it into 5. One man, a construction boss named Niccolo Miliotto, was caught on camera at that cafe 236 separate times over 2 years, acting as the go-between for nearly every construction company in Quebec. Investigators later said contracts handed to the city of Montreal were routinely marked up 15 to 30% higher than they should have been, just to cover what companies owed the Rizzios. On November 22nd, 2006, police moved in all at once. 19 people arrested in a single day, including the family patriarch himself, and basically the entire senior leadership. Over 1,300 charges followed. It remains the largest anti-mafia operation in Canadian history. But the strangest part came years later. Buried in all that footage was something investigators weren't even looking for. Dozens of Quebec construction companies' executives walking into that same back room to hand over envelopes of cash. Nobody had charged them. The RCMP own wiretap warrants were only for the drug trafficking and gambling, so legally, officers weren't even allowed to act on the construction conversations. They just had to keep filming and let the tape roll. 6 years later, that same footage finally surfaced at a public inquiry into Quebec corruption, led by Judge France Carbonneau. It ended up taking down 2 different Montreal mayors, both of whom resigned once the tapes went public. An investigation built to catch the mob ended up exposing how the entire city actually ran. An Irish gang that funded an empire with stolen Brinks cash, a Sicilian boss untouchable for 20 years, and a hidden camera in a coffee shop that brought down both a mafia family and 2 mayors. 3 stories, 1 city. That's Montreal. If you liked this episode, please like and subscribe for more True North Heists. We put out one every weekday. Which one of these do you think ran the city the longest? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again.